Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. I'm at the Sony booth at AES in New York. My friend Andy, it's great to see you.
Nice to see you, Mitch.
And there's a little backstory here because one of the great things about trade shows is that as you're walking the aisles, you run into friends and people who are in the industry and they'll tell you, you got to go check this out, you got to go check this out. Well, I ran into a good friend and he said, you've got to go check out these headphones from Sony. So of course I came to see Andy. Fill us in, what are we looking at here?
So these are the brand new MDR-MV1s. We just introduced them at the last NAMM show just a few months ago. But these are a new open back design. Clearly we've been in the headphone business, not only in the consumer side where we're huge with everything we make there, but also in the world of MDR-7506s. It's just an industry standard. One of the great things I think that people like about the 7506, besides that they fold up, is that they're insanely comfortable. They're like wearing a nice worn pair of jeans. So when we come out with a new pair of headphones, they've got a lot to meet up with, if you got my drift.
Yeah, right.
But these are an open back headphone design. And as an open back headphone design, they're decidedly different than a 7506 closed back design. The world has kind of turned on in production with immersive sound. And of course, movies had used immersive sound for years. And the backstory for these headphones is kind of interesting because just a few years ago, Sony Pictures out in Culver City was, in the final stage of mixing a movie, you go into a mix theater, which is like a movie theater with a giant mixing console, and you can place, all of your sounds in the appropriate speakers. But there were not enough of these giant mix theaters to handle the workload of all the throughput of all the movies they were making at Sony Pictures. So Sony Pictures reaches out to our Japanese R&D teams and said, is there any way that you can make it so that on a pair of headphones, a mixing engineer could have it sound like they're in that theater space? And they go, oh, we will study. So, of course, never tell a Sony engineer that he can't solve a problem because they will work on it. And they came up with something called 360 VME, Virtual Mixing Environment. To cut to the chase, it's where they develop these tiny little microphones, you put one in each ear, and you go into a specific environment, whether it's a mix theater, whether it's a control room, whether it's stereo, Atmos, 360 RA with 13 speakers, whatever. You were in that space. And then they will play test tones out of every single speaker, above, below, behind, all that stuff. And your own particular HRTF head-related transfer function will get very accurately measured. But it's a combination of how you hear, how the room sounds, what the speakers are, all those things make up a profile. And they will then go in sequence and play test tones and sweep tones in every single speaker around the room and measure how you hear it. Then they will take a pair of headphones and put them on and then play additional test tones, and that fine-tunes the system. And then they will play the sounds out of the speakers again, and you go, so what, I already heard that. And then the light bulb goes off in your head, wait, I'm still wearing the headphones. What? And you pull off the headphones and it's dead quiet. You go, what? And you put the headphones on and you are 1,000% convinced that the sound is everywhere that you heard before you put the headphones on. And it's kind of freaky. It's definitely kind of freaky. Now, to best take advantage of that profiling, they developed the new MDR-MV1 headphones, which is what we're really trying to tell you here. And the MDR-MV1s are an open back design. First of all, they have an incredibly wide frequency response because we are kind of saying that they are reference quality headphones. They go from 5 hertz to 80K.
Wow.
So for high res mixing, for regular res mixing, for whatever. But if you are going to do this immersive mixing, you need very accurate locational information. A closed back headphone, like a 7506, the sound can bounce around a little bit inside the ear cup and lose that localization cue, that finesse. But in an open back design, not so. But there are challenges with an open back headphone design, which is a lot of low frequencies tend to leak out, and you lose that low frequency detail that you come to really enjoy. So our engineers, in order to solve that problem, came up with a brand new diaphragm design. Now, if you realize that a diaphragm in a headphone that can go from 5 hertz all the way out to 80K, that diaphragm has to be stiff enough to be able to do 80K, but it has to be pliable enough to do 5 hertz and even lower. And that's quite the challenge. And especially with the pliable end of things, when you crank up the power to a pair of headphones, you can suffer a lot of distortion in the low frequency range, which we didn't want to have. So they came up, many diaphragms will have a kind of high frequency center, and the edges are where it gets pliable, but you usually have these radial corrugated lines. That didn't quite do enough for us. So our engineer came up with the concept of a curved corrugated design. So those little corrugated lines are curved, and that reduced the distortion even more. Now, you still have the problem of losing low frequency. So what they came up with is something called a tri-duct structure. Go to our website to see pictures of it. But tri-duct structure means on the back of the outside of these diaphragms are these 3 little posts with holes drilled in them, and those posts are a very specific height, width, and the size of the hole, and that tunes the low frequency. It's like acoustic resistors that can tune the low frequency and make the low frequency be not only full, but tight. And so, that's the sound of the MDR-MV1. But what would a pair of Sony headphones be if they weren't very comfortable?
Right.
So, these had to be lightweight enough that you could wear them for 8, 10, 12 hours a day and not wig out. So first of all, the ear cups, if you felt these things, are very soft.
Yeah, very.
They're covered in a suede material that is used in luxury sports car seats. But that has something to do also not only with comfort and breathability, and they're user replaceable if several years from now you wear them out. But the idea is if you're mixing immersively and you put a pair of headphones on and off, you want them to go on in the way, same position you took them off in. So not only are there click stops that are resettable, but they are just tight enough so they don't shift around on your head, but they don't grab so much that they wig you out. So now, they are also crazy lightweight. And actually the very first time I went to Japan and they showed me these headphones, I picked them up and go, cheap plastic. And I was a little bummed out. I didn't say anything. But I found out later that they are not plastic. That is an aluminum alloy. And as an aluminum alloy, you see all these little holes? Those holes have to be individually drilled. And the slits on the side have to be drilled. They went so far as to take every part on the headphone and reduce it in 1/10 of a gram increments so they could get the weight down, but not go so far that the part is no longer strong enough to stand up to a professional use.
Right.
So they're crazy lightweight, very comfortable, breathable. They even went off on the connectors. The connectors are machined aluminum, and they're really high end. And these also have a balance connector if you're running them off of a digital audio player that has a 4.3 millimeter jack instead of just a 3.5 millimeter jack. So I think I've taken you through all of the MDR-MV1s. That's an awful lot of information there. If, you know, just to state maybe the obvious, an open back headphone you generally don't use in front of a microphone because there can be a little bit of bleed that can cause feedback. But if you're mixing, if you're composing, if you're creating your keyboards, your string section, even potentially if you're a drummer where the sound, the loudness of your drum so overpowers a tiny bit of lick, it's wonderful. The sound stage is huge and very pleasing. It's a very smooth transition through the entire frequency range. That's it. Sorry, thank you for the time. I know that's quite the story. But hey, that's what the AES show is all about.
That's
right?
it. We're geeking out.
We are geeking out.
We love
Mitch,
it.
thank you.
But I mean, that speaks to the quality of the phones. That everything was considered.
Everything
from the connector on up. I mean, it's just absolutely been reading. I can't wait to check them out.
Please, I'm looking forward to it.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you, Mitch.
All right, thank you. Check these out. Very cool headphones. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater, coming to you from the Sony booth at AES in New York City.